Jasmine, a student in MA English Literary Studies. And it's my pleasure to introduce our next reader, Cyril Wong, a poet and fiction writer in Singapore. So he is acknowledged as one of the most prolific and influential contemporary Singapore poets. He has published 23 books, and 16 of them are poetry collections. And the most recent collections are Infinity Diary in 2020 and Beachlight in the last year. He has formerly received the National Arts Council's Young Artist Award and has won the Singapore Literature Prize twice. And I'm in Professor Dorothy's contemporary poetry class, and we discussed some poems from his book, Infinity Diary. So this poetry is sensual, anecdotal, and profound. I like it so much. Love, life, queerness, religion, and many other things are intertwined beautifully in his distinctive voice. It will be thrilling to listen to him reading his poems today. And please help me welcome Cyril Wong.
Thanks for that. Gosh, I'm only prolific because, I don't know. I think I'm only prolific because I felt like in my country I was filling a void. I was born in a certain time in the 80s. I was born in the 70s actually. But at the time that I was writing in Singapore, poetry was not, or literature or maybe culture in general was more of a culture of silencing and homogenization. And for someone like me to express myself, I felt like when I was entering the poetry scene as a queer person, as someone for whom I want to talk about my queerness, about my own thoughts and feelings about my relationships with people, about my sex life, about my body. Singapore was not the place to do it at the time, and I felt like I was the only one, so I decided to fill the void with me. If that sounds sexual, it is. Or to put it another way, I like to say in sometimes the workshops to shock people, Singapore was like a very pristine swimming pool, and I'm like this person that went into the pool, went to one corner and took a shit. So that's me. So, okay. I think I was telling Dorothy that in the world of drag queens, I think of myself as a messy queen, like in many ways, because the way I come to poetry is, the way I even come to language is like I'm a person that really doesn't operate in language. I'm a person that operates in images and sounds and feelings and emotions, and all of these are interconnected. And language is already my second language, whatever that language is. And English is just a way for me to translate whatever messiness or chaos is in here and make sense of it. And I'm going to be choosing some poems to read now that kind of give you a trajectory of the kind of poet that I am. And earlier, I think someone was talking about immanence, right? I feel like I am becoming more and more immanent as a poet. And in recent days, I feel like I'm a closet queer mystic disguised as an artist. But you kind of get that when I read the poems. I think I've spent some time choosing these 11 poems. I hope you like them. 1. I'm going to start at home because my parents are people that I really hate, so I like to start with them. Family, aren't they the worst? Also, I use poetry to kind of see them in the best light. So, poets are such liars. This one is about my mom, and everything happens in real life. So, all the poems are based on things that happened to me. And this one is happened when I was working as an arts administrator, and my mom, who had already disowned me like a long time ago, but she had internet issues. She had troubles with the computer, and she decided that the first person to call was me, even though we had not spoken for like a while. And that's the level of delusion I come from in terms of my family background. He's hilarious, past trauma doesn't exist. But yeah, call me about your computer, sure. 1. A tribute to my mom. One, after discovering the internet, my mother has trouble finding a connection. She has clicked open so many windows, the computer threatens to hang. And my logic runs out of variations to explain the same thing over and over and over. She has clicked open so many windows, the computer has threatened to hang. And my logic runs out of variations to explain the same thing over and over and over. Suddenly, I imagine she's looking for her future through that glowing screen. And I'm really helping her to find back her life after all her children have left for new homes, new families to love. What now? I ask. She asks, sorry. What now? She asks. Try again, I reply. The phone pressed to my ear. Close all the windows. Tell me, what do you see? 2. My father is an even more distant figure. I guess you could say I hate him less because he's so wrapped up in this cloud of delusion that I kind of see him as like a passing cloud in my life, or maybe a piece of furniture. So he's just someone that was easy to ignore because he's really no one to me, but he's just my family. So this one is called The Poem. It's not about him, but he's just features in it because why not? Let him be a prop. The poem. Oh, daddy. The poem. The poem begins in this living room where half a man is writing the poem that's never been his to write. His father has floated out of the flat, a broad pillar of cloud rising into sky. If the poet rises out of this life, he carries the poems of other poets away with him, meaning the others will lose part of a heart, even an eye. The first line about the living room was a mistake. The poem had already started way before. No one knows, not even the poet, how it might end, except that it will, with or without a word about endings. For now, at least, the poet is at the helm. The poem likes to let him think so. And when he writes, the poet is lonely and weary of love. He believes these feelings are true and his life will become a poem about loss. But occasionally the air will whisper of itself, speak of the possibilities of any given moment. The poet may or may not listen to the present, suffer from the past, live only for the future. Now, as the poet writes about a poet who has to get ready for school, something holds him at the table where this is now written, a word about loss, after which he can never stop writing, even as he would rather stop, while the very poem goes on writing itself beyond the false horizon of the final line. This poem that is everything and all there is. 3. A poem that I'm a bit ambivalent about, but it's a poem that kind of represents me whether I like it or not, which is the nature of the game, yeah? But it's a poem about questions, and I like to ask questions in my poem that have different answers the older I become. So this one is called Practical Aim. Practical Aim. The title comes also from this whole idea that I'm sure in Hong Kong you might have this same idea of like how in Singapore we are very well known for being practical, for being pragmatic, for better or for worse. So whenever my friends from other countries come to Singapore, I tell them that if Singapore has any kind of dominant ideology, it's practicality, and they're all like, that's not a real ideology, but yeah, I mean, it's just the way it is. So this one is named after that ideology, Practical Aim. After great pain, what would the body learn that it does not already know of relief. When that fire truck has raged past, what do I rediscover about silence? Except that I would always miss it. Do trees mind if it is the same wind that passes through their heads every day? After the mall is completed, must we remember the field it inhabits now, where we chase each other as children? If my lover forgets to wake me with a kiss a second time this week, should I worry? Does solitude offer strength over time? Or is denial of it the only practical aim? After the earthquake, would it matter if no one saw two dogs from different families approach each other without suspicion, then moving apart? As the workers wash their faces hidden by helmets that beam back the sun, should they care about the new building behind them beyond the fear of it falling? If my mother cannot see how else to be happy, is it enough that she may lie in bed, convinced God watches her sleep? After severe loss, what does the heart learn that it has not already understood about regret? When all light finally forsakes a room, do we take the time to interrogate the dark? And to what end? 4. I guess here we kind of enter into love poetry. Like I'm kind of well known for being a slut in Singapore, at least in poetry. Like, you know, I'm the only one, at least in the 90s and 2000s, that was like, oh, this one always talks about his sex life. No, they're love poems, bitches. So, so one of them is, yeah, I'll just get into it. To meet your sky. With you, there's neither a choice nor any kind of resistance. My body is at once nothing and everything you can possibly take. I watch from the table as you carry emptied glasses into the kitchen. They slash sunlight into ribbons, gleam like so many knives in a sink. Roughly, you turn on the tap to wash your hands, then approach like a shadow lengthening across the floor, eyes shiny as blades, your body closing in. Pausing to hover, you lift my chin like the lid of a music box as arms once mine take off to meet your sky. 5. 5, 6, 7, 8 are 4 poems that I wrote about my partner, with whom I'm having a little bit of a squabble, but I still love him. I wrote these 4 poems the moment we moved into our first home, and a home that we are slowly moving out of. Anyway, so these 4 poems about that and commemorating the fact that we moved into Novena, opposite Novena Church. It's a very nice little condominium where I finally had like this sense that, you know, I felt married, if that makes sense. I felt married, I felt settled, I felt like, ooh, family, this is it, you know, I'm gonna die here, lovely. Nothing's permanent. Yeah. So these 4 poems, I mean, it starts off not with the best poem. The first one is like a gay anthem, but it belongs to the series. I think every gay poet secretly, I don't know, I'm generalizing. I don't want to generalize, sorry. But we all have a little bit of like a poem where it's kind of like a gay anthem, kind of like. I come from the 80s, so, you know, gay anthems were everything for me, like, you know, Erasure, you know, I mean, come on. So this is my gay anthem, just not sung but in poetry, right? This one is dedicated to, my partner hates this poem, I think that's why I'm reading it. He hates this poem because he hates the fact that so many men have moved in and out, in and out, in and out of my life. The man we love. The man we love the men we had, the men we wanted. They pass us in the streets. They're going to the gym, to the park, to the pub, to invisible rooms on the internet. They cast their lines of hunger for other men now. The men we wanted, who wanted nothing to do with us. The men we hid our names from and crept away. They're disappearing into their work, into the rest of their lives, picking up their phones to answer another man's voice and putting them down again. The men we had now plow the ache of other men. Time flips them over each other and abrades them to the bone. These men who taught us to be bridges, always on the way to somewhere else, something better. The men we loved, who wiped the disappointment from our lips with a thumb, a tongue down the throat, a promise to call again and a promise fulfilled long before the accident, the illness, the overseas job, a touch turned cold, the averted vision, the other man. The men we loved, the men we had, the men we wanted, they have done far worse than fail to miss us. They have forgotten us. Each is slinking into a cab with another guy and does not wave goodbye. These men who once taught us of ourselves crane to hear the call of new lives now. The call is always waiting to be answered. A boy crying wolf, or maybe it's the truth this time. This truth we leave our better selves for, only to find them again when we least expect it. A face rising like a moon in a night's long window. A night we are scaling with our hearts in our mouths. Then when we reach the top of the stairs, what luck. That face, the moon, has become a mirror. Lost count, but this is the next one. Oh, six. It's six. Yeah, okay, six. This one is I was in Melbourne visiting my sister who has also fled our family. It's not about her because I love her, so I don't write poems about her. This sounds wrong. I have no ambivalence about her, so I don't write poems about her. But as I was visiting her, I was in this taxi, and this cab driver basically told me a story while I was in the back seat. I don't know why I seem to invite such conversations from strangers in public places or in taxis, but people tend to tell me their life stories whether I like it or not. But in this one was particularly moving. I just listened and I related it to my own life, and that's where the poem arose. 6. The cab driver reveals that her parents died in the same bed, holding hands. An autopsy was carried out, meaning no one believed they had made that decision to go like that together. They could find no sign of poison and no other explanation for how they could have known to reach across a gulf of sleep between them and take hold before their bodies became statues of themselves. I think about us as the taxi stops outside my home, the apartment we love, that we are still paying for. I think about beginnings, about the lovers who instructed us and the lovers whom we instructed before arriving at the lessons of each other, the ones that continue to teach us now. I imagine we are standing on the coast in a black and white film together with everyone we have ever loved. A thin white tsunami appears across the horizon. All of us are walking into the foam, walking straight to that singular wave. Some are holding each other's hands while others hold only themselves against the rising water. I leave the cab, take out my keys, but pause at our front door, the sea shouting my ears as I wonder what time we'll be home. 3. What is it? 7, 8? Clearly, I'm a poet, not a mathematician. Yeah, I've lost count. I don't care anymore. This one is just called The Laundry Can Wait because I love writing about. I mean, I think Brigitte and I were talking about like queer aesthetic and how does that express itself in my poetry? Does it express itself through content, or does it express itself through style? And for me, I feel like it's everything. It's in the content. Like I talk about very domestic things. I mean, it's about content in terms of like it's about two men. It's also embodied in the way I perform my poems. I'm clearly queer. Yeah. So that's for me, yeah. So this poem is one of my favorite poems because every time I read it, I just have very different feelings. Still love, but mixed with time and other things. The laundry can wait. So can the dishes. Our emails and mobile phones too. We could sit out naked by the window if we dared. Or we could catch the news. I could watch you struggle not to doze off during the sports announcements because you're gay. There'll be plenty of time for sleep. Since you asked, the plants are watered, and the light has stopped flickering since I replaced the bulb. And who knows, the dishes might clean themselves after we're gone. How about if we add an extra hour to our day so we may fill it with our sighs? There will be plenty of time for sleep. For now, let us settle into the dimness of evening. I'll talk like the passing of a melody from one instrument to another. Are you worried about how early you would have to go to work tomorrow? Take a breath. Look at me. There will be plenty of time for sleep. And sleep we shall. Here is a poem about I guess some version of the afterlife that I envision. So here, this one is just called Here. I think it's in the printouts or whatever. Here. Here between the country, not Hong Kong, Singapore. Here between the country that will not remember our love, and the sea. Our clothes spill like sand from a tilted palm. We are walking arm in arm. We are gazing in the same unwavering direction. There is no need to mourn for what we have left behind. Look as our footprints evaporate when we approach the chiming of waves, waves rising and tugging at us like joy. This is not an ending, and time has not been unkind. We reach the edge of our lives. We stop in awe of how much further we have to go. 9. Oh, it came back to me. Yes, 9. So, just a little bit more about me, I guess. Like, in Singapore, I'm kind of known as this annoying queer poet that is always being invited to things because, especially in the 2000s and a bit after that, I was kind of like the token queer person in panels, which is great for the honorarium. But I also know that I'm that faggy person that they invite because like they don't want like two poets all writing about like national identity and national identity and national identity and oh gay. Yeah, okay, whatever. Just pay me, bitches. Okay? So I don't mind that. It pays the bills. But I guess this is my long-winded way of saying it. I'm a little bit more than that, but I'll leave it up to you. I'm the last person to define who I am as an artist, poet, writer, human being. I choose not to define myself. Maybe it's part of my mysticism, part of my uncategorizable like nature. I just don't want to be categorizing myself. If you want to categorize me, go ahead. If it gives you joy to do so, go ahead. But in my mind, I'm nothing. I'm no one. I don't care. So this poem is just also kind of like practical aim, a series of questions, but not really questions, a series of statements starting with if. It's part of a longer poem called If Else, which is part of a computer language, program language. Like it's called If Else. But I use it as a title of my poem because I know nothing about computers. I just love if else. Yeah, as I don't know what that means in computers, but apparently it's a thing. And I like to borrow random shit from everywhere to sound, interesting. If, some sentences starting with if. It's interesting to read this now. Okay. What will this bring up? Okay. Iffy. If thou be the Son of God, command that these stones be made bread. If can sometimes create ambiguities. If I were lost in a poem, not killing, not a thief, not hurting anybody I love. If you look hard enough, I'm riding out absence into form. If you look hard enough, I'm a capsized ship, sliding down the night's wet tongue. If you look hard enough, you may learn to love the you in me, the me in you. If you look hard enough, if you look soft enough, if you're even looking. If grief is deep blue, melancholy must be the color of a sky without clouds. If emptiness is white, staring into that fluorescent light, must be falling in love. If doors are not the answer, are windows? If windows are not the answer. If a poet loses his way or her way or their way on the map of an empty page, treads a path of sunlight out the window to enter a haze like an evaporated language. If I love you this much, you must love me this much. If desire is the heart's intransigent verb, if there's a point to this and you're afraid to point it out, if the quiet between words is also a language, if now, if ever, if you, if I, if not, if never, if we saw ourselves through each other's eyes, which is not the same as being mirrors, if language is our breath, then poetry must be the sound of our cracked voices singing. If I make you feel alone, if I'm not sorry, if I did not love you, if I did not know you, if this gets too bright, I can make a sound so you will not lose me. If I ate the dark, there will be more dark. If this, if that, the heart is riveted with ifs. If you kiss my eyes, I will close them. If you're the reason I let optimism in. If this gets too bright, please make a sound, any sound. If makes babies. If there's nothing you may eat without consequence. If I swallow your pride, if you swallow mine, if only, as if takes pictures of events that never took place, lines them up like a circle of dancing mirrors around the heart. If you choose to forget, it is also a kind of forgiving. If this, if that, the heart, if riveted with ifs. If I walk past my funeral, or along the way inside a dream. If others retreat to that sense of wonder, but my heart remains homeless. If the life I chose is the life I chose. If myself is a shadow, at least I made a dent in the light. Okay, second last one. I don't really consider myself a very spiritual person, but I like to think I'm kind of like a post-Buddhist, post-Hindu, post-Sufi, post a lot of things. I'm aspirational, but I'm also someone that finds my own way through the morass of spirituality. I think we were talking about this, how, spiritual practices and institutions are all very, oppressive and domineering and problematic. So I want to find my own way, and I feel like I found it. And I found that, poetry is like a mantra that I would love to recite on my deathbed, And I want it to be my mantra, my words, that I will use to guide myself into the afterlife. Is that narcissistic? Do I care? Of course not. Okay. So this is my mantra. It's borrowed from many places. I owe credit to like Shunryu Suzuki, Jiddu Krishnamurti, Thich Nhat Hanh, a lot of people, Alan Watts even, kind of a problematic figure, but yeah, a lot of people. So this one is like it's taken from a longer poem called Satori Blues, and this is just a small little section of it. The way is every place. The way is every place. Let the weather outside settle into the weather inside. Sun beats, wind sits, leaves rest in a circle around us. Forget to remember, remember to forget. Light casts my shadow into a rock, beckons and merges it with the shadow of a tree. A child's laughter calls down bridges into this world. That slow walk back to the car, our minds filled with inaudible music. What we talk about when we talk about loss are the catastrophes, walls collapsing and the terrible flood. What we forget is what we fail to detect, the line opening like an eye from one end of a dam to another, a startled look and the averted vision from a wrong word at yet another wrong time. Loss is an ever-growing thing. The same is true of how we win. Everything woven through with its own unmaking, a storm brewing silently in an apple, the shattered net of clouds, cracks in walls, rocket to a big finish in the ceiling, one arm going suddenly numb, the final poem of a life left unfinished on the page. Particles, elemental dust magnetize to form new planets and suns with or without a creator. Seeds of illnesses make camps along bloodstreams, preparing for that war on health. Nothing to be considered within diminished vistas of hope and reason. Nothing reconsidered. How it flows into an embrace, revivifying every word and every gesture. And who says we cannot compartmentalize heartbreak, break it open and employ its parts? Grief to inspire tragic songs, anger stored for potential storms. And what to do then with resignation? How to use it? And what is it good for? Stars. Stars, faint from black, free falling into deep graves of themselves, from which no light may lean away, the future revealed like an afterlife, which we fight to occupy and exit with equal courage and delight. And so what? So what if justice is unfair, anger is a chair, and tears are just for show? The tenderness of doubt, happiness without. Nothing prevents nothing from passing through, nothing after all to try, nothing after all to do. Listen, listen to what I've said. If the truth agitates, perfect. If not, sing along. This number is for you. Last one, short one. Still dedicated to my partner. Thank you for listening. Just a very quick one. But we're not yet there. But we're not yet there. But we're not yet there. There, where we cling to our names for old time's sake, and clouds would read like empty pages at last. But we are not yet there. Thank you.